All right, so let's see where we had to head up next. Right, the
The
Valix belt.
Valix belt.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, this settled mission, is about yeah, an abandoned star space station. What remains of it,
Wait,
anyway.
wait. Are we gonna airdrop from right from outer space?
You know, I will say this. One thing I find weird about this game is, while it definitely feels like it wants to be part of the darker, edgier trend, it feels like it can't completely make up its mind. Like, sure, yeah, things are darker and edgier, but in a lot of cases, you could argue that the story tone is more or less in line with the regular
Ah,
Ratchet series to
Again,
the
it
point
wants to
where
keep the satire angle, Drova, with, again, like I said, sensationalism on TV in this case. It's basically a more valiant attempt at what Jack 2 was doing, where, the setting is very oppressing, but in order to balance things out, you have Dexter, still being himself, and, his interactions are the thing that are supposed to be levity, for the story. While in this case, it's a bit more integrated with the overall world building. It's still
yeah.
very radically different from the departure from the previous trilogy. Yes, Dwaves?
For,
I
for a second, there, I thought the game was gonna have us try and airdrop in outer space, and we're like, you'd be just be floating everywhere, wouldn't you?
Depends
if
if
I
the
were
place had an artificial gravity. Go on, Jordan.
if I were to make a comparison, it's kind of like Shadow the Hedgehog, albeit still lighter. Like, unlike Shadow, they don't have the characters say the full, well, the full swears uncensored anyway, but similar to Shadow, it's darker, but still feels like it could slot just
I
fine into the
mean, I can tell
universe.
you, okay, I don't know how the ESRB would have classified that back then, but if you paid attention, one of the cutscenes, one of the previous part had an homophobic joke, so I think
I cannot.
Shadow is
Sorry.
technically a bit better on that front, even in swearing.
It would have been interesting to see to hear Clank say, "Ratchet, what is that damn fourth?" What would be the thing?
We also had the Clunk, technically, almost the same bullshit in the previous game, so...
I think he literally does, they just censor over it, but I'm talking about Mako and Shadow the Hedgehog, they had the characters say damn completely uncensored, but what I'm getting at is like in spite of that though, the game feels like it perfectly slots in with the Sonic series. Like, yes, we have the usage of guns and whatnot, but ironically, it feels like a sequel to Adventure 2. Admittedly, one of the darker Sonic games, but while it was trying to be edgier, it did it a lot better than other games because I can still, at the end of the day, call that a Sonic game.
Anyway, you...
Compared to sorry, go on.
Which is ironic because it feels more like a Sonic game than the actual Sonic Anniversary game that came out later.
Compared to how in Jack 2, Jack literally becomes purple and becomes complete super dark edgy mode.
That's the super mode that you get with the dark eco,
Yeah.
It's mostly for combat anyway. Sure, it has some level of plot integration, but Jack's Jack still has his trademark edge for these last two games when it comes to interacting with some of the characters. But like I said, that's where Dexter tends to be for the balancing. Anyway, you may notice that my default weapon, the twin, pistols, now as the mod of the morphing one, which means also the enemies that can turn. It's not limited to just a specific enemy, but an entire, farm assortment. It's like that parallel series to Garfield from the animated series from the 90s. I forgot what it's called.
Our contestant will have to clear the area of all enemies before he can land.
Yeah, if I recall correctly,
Alright,
I think I'm speeding things up because again, otherwise it will take too long. Again, this is just a simple, destroyed all the targets, the specific targets in these specific places now that you gain control of a ship.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Don't you just love this very peaceful soothing music as you go around.
Actually, it's quite very thematic, Dweebs, and it reminds me that you clearly did not play enough of, Shadowbringers, because, this is actually the track that actually is used for one of the more desolate areas. The soothingness, quote unquote, is to contrast the fact that the area has been actually plagued by, a disaster, and now what remains is a barren wasteland.
No. See, the thing is, Dwebs, if Teo really went for a hilarious, inappropriate track, he would put in the prayer playing here while Ratchet kills all the monsters.
I care enough about our channel to not get copyright strike. Thank you.
I want to be fair to the prayer, essentially. Like, I get what it's going for, that sort of audio dissonance, contrast a massively terrifying situation with an uplifting and calm and peaceful song, Kingdom Hearts practically wrote the book on that with basically The Other Promise, which is used as a boss fight theme.
By that logic drove up, Quest for Cameron should have done it first because it came at the end of the 90s while Kingdom Hearts was early 2000s.
I know, but what
My point
means
is that Kingdom Hearts did it better by writing the book. Though.
Because the prayer. Okay, even if you look at the context of the story, it makes no sense to have the prayer play there. Like, there's no possible thematic justification you can come up with for this.
Well, what technically happens is that the protagonist escapes, and the prayer is actually her mother, as instead she's escaping, hoping for her safety. That's technically it. The problem is that they, instead of actually focusing on her, they spruce in instead the action sequences, as David Cage will say.
What I legit wonder is, how did that song make it though? Like, Quest for Camelot, from what I understand, was not exactly the top
marketing,
of town,
and like I say, I think I mentioned when we did the original commentary that they employed also a professional Italian opera singer, Andrea Bocelli, for the credit version, meaning that there was a lot of buzz going around.
Credit version. Yeah, okay, that would
because
do it.
Remember, everyone in their mother was using the ballad, but in this case they were going one step beyond.
Yeah. So, Jova, speaking of the previous topic. Okay, so what to you would be the best Shadow dying quote? Damn, not here, or, as he puts it very well in Sonic 06, no!
My favorite is, no!
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know why, just the way he says it.
It sounds like Jason Griffith's testicles are being turned for a fucking meat grinder.
Or like when he stepped on... honestly, the best way I can describe it is like if the character has actually stepped on a piece of shit and he's actually sleeping onto it as a result. Instead of literally realizing that he's about to have the worst day of his life so far, and he's like, no!
I don't know, Taylor, that sounds like the most disgusting clown banana joke I've ever heard.
I mean, I guess Nickelodeon should hire me then.
But in a way it's perfect because it matches how the player often feels while playing Sonic 06. Yeah, no, seriously, that is my favorite Shadow death quote. And like, kudos to Jason Griffith, he was trying. I mean, granted, everyone was trying with 06, but
I mean, he's still my favorite English Shadow anyway, so...
Same.
What
the fuck? Did that ship just clip through the environment?
The ship has gone to the spaces between spaces, it seems.
The Kingdom of Crystal Skull? I don't think so, Drova. Also, to answer your question, Dweebs, yes, I actually like. Actually, it's very connected to what we were saying before, because, okay, it's worth noting that the Italian VA for Shadow, current one, obviously, has a lot of range. To give you an idea, he is also the regular guy for SpongeBob. Don't take this as to believe that he's the Italian, Tom Kenny. It's not really an equivalent one-to-one. But to give you an idea of the range, he can voice both something as silly as, SpongeBob, but also something as super edgy as Shadow, or Jack in Jack 2 and 3. So, the guy actually manages to make it work. He's like, okay, outside of when he has to do the silliness, to give you an idea, Pedro, he also voices the Tenkaichi referee from DBZ and original Dragon Ball.
Okay.
But he's usually employed, if he has to do the normal voice, to have the characters that are at least like cool or something, you know, like Deathstroke in DC anime, in DC stuff, for example.
Deathstroke is SpongeBob.
Well, or Shadow, again, like I said, and now it's been the fact again, like I said, this is actually what makes one of the strong suits of the Sonic 3 movie, the fact that they kept consisting, the fact that they have voice actors for the main characters, you know, instead of celebrities, and they actually fit. Even Sonic's VA, which I normally really do not like, he actually fits with the movies.
Did he turn? I'm guessing he turns in a better performance of the movie.
Okay, it's hard to describe, but I guess because, again, I don't know how to say, because it's not like he's directed differently. It's not like he's doing an impression, you know. It's just that his voice coming out of Sonic, that version of Sonic, just feels more ideal compared to the game one, and I don't know why.
Does he portray Sonic in more of a childlike, naive format?
No, like I
Because
said,
that
there are
might-
no impressions or difference in variation. It's literally the same. And like I said, that guy normally is not known for doing impressions. This is one. It's actually one of the negative points to him, because they get to making voice characters like Rufy in One Piece, and more notoriously, as I've shown also to Pedro, Gibanian in Yokai Watch, and he really, really doesn't fit that.
Oh yeah, no, Italian Gibanian sucks. Sorry.
I
Well, what I
don't know
was
what
getting
this
at
was
was-
the thought process, but I'm sorry, it did not work.
But what I was getting at is like, well, does like the kind of voice he gives Sonic fit better for movie Sonic? Like,
Again,
movie
if I
Sonic's
had to guess, but I'm not entirely sure myself, you know.
It's like movie Sonic is a good take on Sonic, but they are still different takes on the characters. You can tell if like
The
you know
one
you're a
thing
fleshed
that
out enough fan.
the one thing that they did for Sonic 3 that was not particularly, not even keen, but you know, I think they could have avoided doing that, is that while they still use the same person for the second movie and the games as Knuckles, they did put a filter to deepening a bit his voice to match more Idris Elba's performance, and I'm like, you
A
couldn't.
filter.
Well,
Oh.
not necessarily a filter, a slight deepening, you know, of the voice in order to match Idris Elba's performance. And I was like, no, you didn't need that. Sorry. The character
Was it done in a matter?
The character was practically fine in the second movie. I don't know what the user.
Well, Java, I'm guessing it's
Was it-
kind of like what Trey and Matt do in South Park when they're voicing the kids, probably.
Oh, I get that, but I was wondering, like, is it done in a way where it sounds awkward, like you can tell it's been
no,
running through?
but it's different nonetheless. So that's what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
Again, it's an unnecessary thing added for the sake of matching, you know, the American version, which has no real place in what they did.
Did it do
Yeah.
what the Portuguese dub did and gave Robotnik and Gerald the same voice actor
No,
over
like I
in
said,
Italy?
the thought process is that only the CGI characters get their game's counterpart. Robotnik and Geralt are technically still by the same VA, but he's the go-to Jim Carrey VA that has been going on since the
Yeah.
2000s.
Same as us, yeah, same as us.
Oh, that's actually what I was getting at, like,
If I had to
wondering if
hazard
like,
a
they had
guess,
the
it
same
might
voice
be-
actor play the two.
If I had to hazard a guess, it might be the same thought process that happened for the Game Scenes generation, where Sega itself as a company actually supervised the whole thing for European non-English speaking countries and told what to do and what not.
Possible.
Yeah, because no, that's especially because Joe, my country has not really had that great of a track record dubbing Sonic media. So, like for example, for Adventures, which was the first time Sonic had a proper full voice acting role, they got a woman to voice Sonic, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem considering so many women voice anime boys, right? But she doesn't even try to sound like a male.
I can
Oh
tell you that
my.
the guy that they got for the Adventures on the Hedgehog in my country is kinda hilarious.
People, I am beside myself, and boy, do I look good. And
Basically what we need to do is to relocate solar panels in order to reactivate the tower.
I can say that this
Skybeam!
mission certainly happened. I mean, don't get me wrong. I recall having fun enough with it to play, but
Well, it's one of the reasons why I
eventually-
sped up. It's one of those things that you're probably having more fun playing it than actually seeing it in action.
And I will say this, even having fun playing it, there's definitely a gameplay loop that, again, when I originally played as a kid, I felt got a little old. Not enough to make me put down the game, but
Wait.
again, enough for me
Alright,
to...
time for another testing from Dread Zone.
Subject 135. Choose one of the following items. A Courtney Gears musical lunchbox, a talking secret agent Clank bobblehead, or this super...
Again, interestingly enough, this game really likes to reference Courtney Gears a lot.
Hey, what's a big idea?
Subject 136. Choose one of...
Courtney Gears! Ouch! Hey!
Please, are you in charge
We
of
will-
this marketing program?
Wouldn't you like to play with an Ace Hardlight action figure? All the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, whatever. That guy's a tool.
Yeah. So if Ace is a tool, whose action figure would you rather have? Huh?
I don't know. Maybe that Lombax guy who smoked Reactor. He was like, who you thought is all? Ow! Mom!
Subject 138.
Next.
Yeah, that's
We'll tell
like,
the kids what they want.
again, if you remember the Spyro games, that is classic Insomniac humor, having a weird, repetitive, situation that technically does not manage to progress and, ending the cutscene by the next volunteer going on. So the spirit of the company is still there in a way. Anyway, go on, Pedro, in the meantime.
No, it's just because my country has a very poor history of dubbing Sonic media. Because that being said, here's the thing: for later on, because back in the '90s we only dubbed a couple, like 9 episodes of Adventures. Only later when we dubbed the entire series, years later, like a decade later, they actually got a much better actor, fortunately.
Curious, did they do it in the sense
The Portuguese, for the record, the Portuguese voice of Tyson from Beyblade. He's a voice actor over here who specializes in the 90s radical dude's voice, basically. So obviously, it's the perfect fit, right?
I'm curious.
go on.
When you say they redid the dub, did they do it entirely, or did they just pick up where you left off?
Entirely.
Also,
Cool.
to mention quickly...
Although a lot of people have archived the original audios taken from VHSs, so it has been preserved, the original dub, I mean.
Also, to mention quickly before we end, the guy that they got for 90 Sonic, both for Adventures and Set AM, technically, although the series is just called Sonic, nothing more in my country, he doesn't really sound like Sonic. To give an idea, he specialized in some... he can do serious stuff, but he's mostly specialized in comedy roles. Going back to SpongeBob, he's instead Patrick's VA, So he's more specialized in comedic side relief. But characters who have a relatively more deep voice. But the thing is that throughout the 80s and 90s, he was typecast to voice cartoon cats and similar animals, because he's also the major VA of Doraemon, to give an example. So when it came to Sonic, we just say, get him. Even if he don't, but Jerry, I don't think it fits. Get him. I don't think I did not ask your opinion. So again, things got better, but it's still a bit weird. Anyway, tune in for the next part, where I think we face the third of the exterminators, the Eviscerator, the bug creature. See you for that.
See ya.
See you then.
Bye.